I'm Anna.
And I'm Ben.
And we are AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today, we are not going to talk too much at first because we have a lot to catch up on, but expect the same talking in the discussion portion of this episode. Without further ado, are you ready to see what happens on this episode?
Very much so.
My Hero Academia.
Yes.
Let's go. Okay, that was My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 8. So much happened that episode.
I feel like that episode could have been at least 2 different episodes. Like, I could have spent way more time with, like, the UA students. Like, I thought this whole episode was literally just going to be them there.
Everything's so hype. Everything's, like, turning up to 11. And you know what it is? Like, I love shows with, like, incredible animation, like everybody else, right? But this, like, what's really shining for me about My Hero Academia right now is all the converging character arcs, like, and all of them converging perfectly.
Yeah, it's coming all together. Like, when we had that, like, those, like, standout moments, like, really getting, you know, Red Riot, we, like, really got Kirishima, and I remember being, like, beyond excited about those episodes. Like, those were some of my favorite episodes from a few seasons ago.
Oh, yeah.
And we got that backstory with Mina, and that's how I knew when she gave that look to Mineta. I was like, we haven't seen, like, Kirishima told us how awesome Mina is, and we saw in a flashback how epic Mina could be, really just, you know, going in front of a scary villain and standing up for people and protecting people and being, like, willing to put herself in that position. Like, perfect hero energy, and that he wanted to emulate her, basically. And he was so, like, enamored with her ability to do that, he wanted to be able to do it himself. And when she gave that look to Mineta, all I could think was about what Red Riot basically was saying about her and those memories. I did not at all think that Gigantomachia had anything to do.
Well, no, and you know what sucks? So much is going on that I'm just stupid, because I 100% knew that was Gigantomachia, like, when we met who Gigantomachia was, and then, like, connected it with the Mina, you know, leaning over backstory. Like they looked the same. But for some reason, it completely left my mind, even the past few episodes, how narratively it is the perfect matchup and time for Kirishima and Mina to have their moment here.
Right, and I just, all the interpersonal relationships that are, other than, like, obviously we have Deku as our main character, and we know who his best friends are, basically, and we also know who his rivals are.
Yeah.
But there are other people in this class who have their own friendships, and I think when we got that kind of, what would you say, like, that kind of school festival arc, you know, we got a little more of, like, the students that aren't the front runners, basically, and their friendships and their relationships. And I got so happy because I don't remember his name, but he's the one that can recede into darkness.
Yeah. Like
the opposite of Dark Shadow. Mm-hmm. He's, like, the rival to Dark Shadow. And in that battle back then, where they 1B and 1A were battling, he definitely seemed like he had a crush on, I think it's Komori, the mushroom hero. And you could see, like, as the flames were spreading, that he, like, literally went and was, like, protecting her. And I was like, to have, like, the interpersonal relationships, even just nuanced, like, mixed in of, like, genuinely, if he was next to her on a battlefield and were to think that he has a crush on her, 100% he would do something like that. And then 100% that Kirishima would run through the flames if he saw Mina flying in the air.
It's so interesting because it's like there's A, B, C, D, E, and F stories. Like, and like, each, as you go further down the line, of course there's going to be less significance, but it doesn't mean there has to be no significance or no story. And I know a lot of people who are very critical of season 5 of My Hero Academia for pacing and lack of monumental moments, and that's their opinion for sure. But what it did was teach us about these other students in ways that really pay off here in those D, E, and F storylines where it's like, oh my god, we can pause it on this frame and see that like crush coming full circle or
Yes,
paying off a
we
little
need
bit.
that.
You
We
know?
needed those matchups.
Yeah.
Because we also have a few different people from 1B fighting with the students from 1A, and now because we already know and we've seen their quirks in action now, we can truly understand what types of matchups could happen where they could help each other.
Yeah.
And that is really awesome. Like, honestly, it feels so purposeful to me now that we got that kind of student battle test
Agreed.
when they're all going to have to battle together, basically, minus some of the main students against basically the League of Villains.
Yeah.
Basically the entirety of the League of Villains other than Shigaraki.
You want to hear one of the stupidest thoughts I've ever had since we started the channel?
Sure.
This episode feels so scripted, and it's the stupidest
like,
thing.
obviously it
But
is.
yeah, and and I think people want unexpected things or whatever. Like I'm myself, I feel that way myself. But when it's fiction, when it's done well and done right, it feels really good. And like
It feels like everything's already been set into motion. It's unpredictable, but it's also like makes complete sense once it happens. Like it's a hindsight 2020 thing.
Yeah, but it's like to this whole storyline with Gigantomachia, sure, but like the whole fact that we had all the backstory with Shigaraki and how he is saying things like heroes will hurt their families, which is a quote from his dad.
And he's quoting it to basically Gran Torino.
And who's quoting it to Endeavor, who is a hero who has hurt his family. And then
it's like everyone's in the right place.
Everyone's in the right place. And except Dabi and Todoroki.
Yeah, they need to somehow get in the same place.
But
for our headcanons.
Dude, I don't know, is Gran Torino just dead? Or like bored? Like they're.
I think that this is kind of, unfortunately, the perfect moment to kill Gran Torino.
I think I keep getting shocked, and I shouldn't be, but just at how much the pure strength, like physical strength alone of Shigaraki can do.
Yes.
I
think for a second I forgot that what we were hearing when he first like awakened, that it was like he was not even human. And he was going to have capabilities that we couldn't even comprehend.
Yeah.
Physical strength, crazy physical strength being one of them. When it's not even a quirk, right? That was stolen. It's literally just his physical strength. I don't remember exactly,
so remember in season 1, we had All Might fight the Nomu who had enhanced physical strength. Yeah. And even with Aizawa trying to turn it off, it couldn't turn it off because it was artificial manufactured strength, and that's what I'm kind of assuming it is. But to the point of grabbing onto Gran Torino's leg, squeezing enough for blood to come out,
and blood to come out there, and blood to come out of his mouth.
Yes, and then we see him punch Gran Torino into his stomach, and we see blood come out. In my opinion, that's only going to happen if his stomach is being torn open or like pushed in, and like it.
Yeah,
that's horrifying. And I
and we
agree.
get him basically piercing through Ryukyu. And I'm like, how? And okay, attention to detail though. The way that the scaling was like coming apart, I was super impressed by that it was like kind of realistic to if you were punching through something like reptilian, I feel like.
It added to the surrealness of it. I do have to agree with you that like it would be a good time narratively to kill off Gran Torino, but holy shit, I don't want him to die, and I'd feel so bad that like one of his like thoughts is like our decision, our choice.
Yes, and that's why it's
the cause of this.
It's so their decision for her to cast off her child and say that she no longer has a child. That decision ended up creating probably the second worst villain, because it is the underling of All for One.
The whole reason Shigaraki was given up was put in the same situation
was because of All for One, right?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't, because, like, oh my god, it's so good, because
It's like, it's no matter what, he was at risk at fall. His family was at risk at falling in the hands of All for One.
yeah.
And All for One, like, duh, just the idea of that is so frustrating. I feel like I feel so. It's Shimura, right?
Yeah.
She
Nana Shimura.
She let go of her child, and in hopes that casting him off and changing his name and all of that would protect him. And yes, he harbored this hatred, but unfortunately, he had a child whose quirk was just something that they couldn't handle. Was Shigaraki's decay a mutation?
I don't know.
I feel like I don't know if they like blatantly said it, but I feel like a lot of the villains happen to have maybe a mutated quirk or maybe.
Well, it seems
something.
like every quirk for a lot of people is just like being heightened to such a degree when it's pushed on, like when it's under pressure,
under so much stress.
Yeah.
But there would have been, I feel like, okay, so if you think about it, if Shimura's son hadn't harbored such hatred toward heroes,
mm-hmm.
Shigaraki wouldn't have ended up the way he did.
Sure.
It's that hatred that made his father basically get mad at him so much.
Yeah.
And make him feel like he wasn't understood or couldn't be who he wanted to be because of his dad. And
if there was no separation of family, then Shigaraki's dad could have either been killed as a kid or become Shigaraki.
Well, it's like Shimura wouldn't have been able to focus on saving the public from All for One. She would have had to focus on protecting her family. She would have had to split herself.
That's not the type we've learned. That's not the type of person or life that's been had by anybody with One for All.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like you are Superman, like, and you have like a secret identity. No, this is like a extremely high risk situation to be put in.
You know what's really depressing? It never like really occurred to me in my head until now that like, what if All Might had wanted a family? What if All Might like had a crush on someone at some point, wanted to have kids, and like maybe that's why it's so fulfilling to him to teach at UA and to have Deku as like to mentor Deku, is because he can't actually have a family. I mean, now he could, but he's also like a shell of a man, basically, like teetering on the edge between life and death. But that also opens up the question of what is the rest of Deku's life if he can't defeat All for One in his young teen years.
I don't know.
Poor Uraraka. Like,
yeah, I don't see anything like like this is where it happens, right? This is where Deku's quirks awaken. This is the moment. So this is like the kind of the final shot for One for All. But I thought that we had Kaminari die for a second. Like,
getting hit by that?
The concrete slab, and we saw how much damage it did to Midnight, who I am kind of convinced is dead, but could be completely wrong.
Well, when all of those other heroes jumped up and said they had gotten rid of the other villains in the area, that's when I kind of had like a little sigh of relief that
they came to help.
It's possible that like they were right behind those like 4 villains that were coming up on Midnight.
Yeah.
But Midnight's obviously like still very messed up. But here, I think why it was so like Midnight wasn't using her quirk really at the time that she was in the air and getting hit. And so why it's like a little more nerve-wracking when it's Kaminari is he was in the middle of trying to do something.
Yeah.
So he was even more like caught off guard and even more maybe weak at the moment of impact. And that's why it was scary. But he was fine because he ended up in the lap of a beautiful woman. And Jiro was not around to see it.
Mr.
So
Compress, like we saw him lose his arm in season 4. He has these like finger guns. Yeah. They're so nuts.
But the good thing is that he accidentally used all of his little balls.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, but you know what he said? He was like something like Kaminari was so strong or had so much power that he accidentally used all of them. And I'm like, good job, Kaminari. You're so powerful.
I loved Mount Lady this episode. Visually, like we had some really good shots of her like all bloodied up and like her mask all in tatters.
She just jumped on a porcupine basically,
Honestly.
and I'm like, brave. And then she stuck her hands in
spiky teeth
in a mouth of something that could just literally chomp her fingers off.
And then we got to see Mina's Acid Man, which
was adorable.
I had never seen. We have not seen that, right?
We knew she was working on something, right? That was like maybe more of a defense.
Yeah, but it was so cute and like cool.
So
I don't know.
cute.
I loved it.
Like, okay, so I gotta say, for Mina, when I first met her, like season 1, I did not care for her design very strongly, but once you really like, I think honestly, I already said it at the beginning of the discussion, but there was something about Kirishima's flashbacks of Mina that made me actually kind of like be like, oh, I feel like around that time is actually when I opened myself up to really starting to appreciate and attach to the other members of Class 1A.
Yeah.
I feel like Red Riot there basically made me be like, oh, shoot, there's a lot of other classmates other than Bakugo
who
that
have their own, like,
and
stories.
Raka that I should be paying attention to and or maybe getting attached to, because why not?
Yeah.
And when I saw that with him and I saw his awesome moment, I saw his flashback, that's when I really started to, like, pay a little more attention to Mina. And I know you liked her from the very beginning in terms of design, because you've told me before that you love her design.
But it, like, just paying attention to those characters is really paying off right now. I love how Kaminari and Kirishima are shining here. Kirishima had, like amazing moments seasons ago. We didn't need anything else from him, but to bring him back and then have him like just go crazy mode. And then Kaminari, we already had a cool moment this past season, or like this season.
So the Kaminari came off more like surprising to me that he had a moment here because of what we got earlier on in this season.
Yeah.
The Kirishima just felt like it was finishing, like tying up something, like tying up a story of like of a connection. And so it didn't feel as like, wait, oh my gosh, you know, what's Kaminari doing? That's how I felt. Like I was surprised that Kaminari was like active again, because I feel like I still call upon old Kaminari that could only like do like one little shock and then he was like, you know?
I thought he was out of commission after that, like for the rest of the battle, for the rest of the season maybe. This is gonna sound really weird. Aizawa losing his quirk.
Oh God, we're there now?
Comforts me that he won't die. I think it's
because there's no reason to kill him if he doesn't have a quirk. That's so right.
And we obviously know he's been practicing with Eri. It's terrifying because there's no more Eri practice if she hasn't already mastered it or gotten better at it, because she doesn't have like the shutdown button anymore. But I could see it like wrapping up with Eraserhead getting his quirk back because of Eri, you know? But he also, I don't expect Eraserhead not to fight if he could do anything now, because, you know, his quirk doesn't enhance his physical ability at all, and he is always out there fighting. You
know what Aizawa has become for me? So he's so this show has been on a while. Obviously, this is the 6th season. I originally watched season 1 when it first came out, and I remember loving like Shoto. And now, as I am older, and it is the 6th season, I am much more a fan of Aizawa.
You mean in like a
Oh, and Mirko.
Yeah, like an appearance attraction factor.
Like I would get like a stuffed animal of them or something, like a simping thing.
Yeah, like a simping.
Like thing. Before, I was like Bakugo and Shoto are so cute. I love them.
You know who I simp over?
Mirko.
Majestic. I want to watch his quirk so bad. I'm so glad we got to see like a little bit of him like making other heroes fly, but he has this like stubble. It's really nice. I don't know. I like it.
Mirko's gonna get jealous.
Mirko's amazing too. Mirko is.
I mean, we both have Mirko on our list, so
yeah.
I don't. You don't have Aizawa on your list, do you?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe now that you know he's not gonna die.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm liking where the season's going though.
I mean,
a lot of good lines.
Given, it's been so good.
Yeah. You have anything else?
I think Shigaraki's had the best lines this season,
by
and
far.
It's because of this. Like he's saying things his dialogue is so good because it's also with a mix of having memories now of unconsciousness now from someone else within his body.
Yeah.
And so when he called like Deku like little brother, that still sticks with me because I absolutely loved it on so many ends. I loved it from Shigaraki like subconsciously basically thinking of Deku that way, even though it was really All For One talking about One For All.
Yeah.
But I still loved it. That was probably one of my favorite dialogue pieces so far this episode.
One of my favorite ones this episode was him saying, like, I reject you too. It
Yes.
was so good. I love that whole
It
sequence.
reminds me, it's very similar to some other line we got from him this season that I cannot call upon. And it might have been when he was walking away and all of the family was holding on to him. Or some other time.
He's had a lot of good
He's had
moments.
so many lines that are really great that all have like a similar feel to them.
It's like a protagonist villain, you know? So
that's
good.
like a Gundam Cypher Pokemon.
Oh yeah, Cicada Man.
Is that his name? Do you know his name?
Or
Is he
Cell. He
Cicada
kind of
Man?
looks like Cell with
Sorry,
Piccolo.
we just like pulled up a random screenshot of some of the heroes saving.
Did you think that the
people.
cutaway to Uraraka holding the kid in pigtails was like trying to make us think of Hana when Shigaraki was talking?
Maybe.
Because
I mean, it did kind of. I mean, Hana did have pigtails.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
felt it was odd that that she was like the one we know that was focused on in that dialogue.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting.
We'll see where it goes.
Yes.
You good?
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And we hope to see you next time.
You gotta do this for Crust.